Hi, I'm Dr. Gina Lundberg, and I'm the co-chair of the National Lipid Association Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force. And I'm going to take a minute to tell you what is DE&I and why does it matter. So these are terms that not everyone really understands: inequality, equality, equity, and justice. And these diagrams really help illustrate the differences and the importance of why these affect our community as physicians and as researchers. Inequality is unequal access to opportunities. So you can see in the cartoon, the tree is swaying to the left, and so the child on the left is getting the apples and the child on the right is not. Equality is evenly distributed tools and assistance. So now each child has a ladder of equal height, but since the tree leans to the left, the child on the left is collecting many more apples, and the child on the right still isn't getting any. Equity is custom tools that identify and address inequality. So now the child on the right has a taller ladder, has access to the tree, and is able to collect the apples. But justice is fixing the system to offer equal access to both tools and opportunity. And now the tree is being straightened so that it's upright and can equally distribute the apples to both the left and the right side. Roles of gender and gender identity are sometimes very confusing, especially the terms sex and gender. And this is just a cute cartoon to show that sometimes the difference between assertive and being aggressive might be called your gender. So what is sex and gender and the differences? Well, gender is culturally defined. It's your roles and your responsibilities, such as a caretaker, attributes as being maybe more fragile or emotional, entitlements such as inferior health care to men and financial dependence of women. Gender for men is culturally defined as being more responsible, maybe being more of the roles in the military, the police, having higher risk taking attributes, and entitlements such as higher workforce participation and financial autonomy, higher pay, these types of things. Sex is biological. It's referring to the chromosomes as X and Y. It has to do with reproductive organs and genitalia and the hormones differences in the males and the females. When it comes to workplace performance and particularly letters of recommendation, we see a huge difference between the men and the women. Words that are more often used to describe men are analytical, competent, athletic, dependable, confident, with some of the negative ones being arrogant and irresponsible. Words used more often to describe women are more emotional, like compassionate, enthusiastic, energetic, organized. And the list of negative words to describe a woman is much more detailed than the man. As you can see, there are many more words: inept, selfish, frivolous, passive, scattered, opportunistic, gossip, excitable. And so there are distinct differences when it comes to performance evaluations and even letters of recommendation. We see this in letters of recommendation for medical students. When it comes to the top 10 most common descriptors for men and women, the words are similar: excellent, thorough, good, able, clinical, eager. But when you look at words for gender and unrepresented minority status, you find that 62% reflect personal attributes when it comes to gender, and only 19% reflect competency-related behaviors. When it comes to underrepresented minorities, 30% reflect personal attributes and 28% personal competencies. These gaps, these differences in letters for women and underrepresented minorities lead us to believe that there is implicit bias when it comes to writing these narratives. So what is implicit bias? It's attitudes and stereotypes that affect our understanding, our actions, and our decisions, mostly in an unconscious manner. It's extremely important to understand that everyone has this. Everyone, me, you, everyone on our task force, everyone at NLA. It does not necessarily align with your declared beliefs. So while you may feel like you're equitable and you're inclusive, some of these stereotypes and immediate action behaviors will really represent something you've been taught and that's been in there for a long time. We often favor our own in-group, and these changes are malleable. We can learn to have different responses and to not listen to our implicit biases. These biases affect so many things, including recruitment, hiring decisions, salary and resource allocations, performance reviews, retention, who gets promoted, how a team works together, and a clinical environment. And so these are very important attributes that we need to work on so that all of the members of NLA can feel included and that they're being represented and that they're getting the most for their membership. And then that reflects in how we care for our patients. There are multiple implicit bias tests that you're welcome to take. And during our 21-day challenge, you'll hear a lot more about this. And do gender roles limit women? Well, as a woman, I'm biased, but yes, they do. Women still take on a lot of home roles. We've seen this during COVID, that women were working harder, but still doing things at home, such as teaching the children, keeping the house going with housework and cooking. And so women do have many more challenges in their home life in addition to their professional life. And we've learned that African-American Black women have even tougher challenges ahead of them. When it comes to academic cardiologists getting to a higher rank, we see that very few women go on to full professor. Women are more likely to be an associate professor and most likely to stay in the assistant professor roles, with very few ascending to full professor, despite 50% or greater enrollment of women in medical schools. And not a single US school of medicine showed that women were equally likely to be full professor. When it comes to trainees, our females are not going into cardiology, and they are not seeking roles in interventional or EP cardiology. All of the other medicine specialties have more women than cardiology, and many of the surgical specialties have more women than cardiology. And when it comes to ethnically diverse ethnically diverse students, we see the same thing. Very few African American and Hispanics are going into interventional and EP cardiology compared to other fields. So while diversity, equity, and inclusion are hot topics, are we really doing something about it? And are there actually solutions? These are some JACC journal articles on the differences and the importance of it, but we have so much to learn. We believe that the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee and Task Force can help us to find new direction, to mentor and network, to change the culture within not only medicine, but in the NLA, and have actionable and enforceable and accountable targets. We want to see more men, women, and underrepresented minorities as our speakers, as our leadership, and really helping to improve overall. So I hope you learned a little bit about DE&I today, and that you'll continue to be engaged and continue to grow with us.